how the fuck are you supposed to find the key without a guide? This is the first DLC video I'm making, and I'm already complaining about something. To access Shulva and the Crown of the Second King DLC, you need to kill 2 giants hiding below in Black Gulch. Then you need to go back to the well in Machula to open a door leading to a corpse with the Dragon Talon item. You can then go back to Black Gulch and access the DLC. As soon as you enter, you're given the chance to gaze at the entire area before exploring it. You can even see the imperfects at the bottom of this giant cave, which is really cool. Additionally, you come across the final boss of this DLC right after. Getting to see everything we can explore and fight from the start is a great way to hype players and make them want to explore the area. Shortly after, we encounter the first new mechanic of this DLC, as well as a bunch of new enemies. For every Dark Souls 2 DLC, a unique type of soldiers can be fought, each of them having perished and fighting in different manners. In Shulva, soldiers use bows and maces, and they can poison you if you aren't careful. Taking them on one by one is not a problem at all, although they don't always seem to stagger, and they can be quite challenging if there are several of them at the same time. The second enemy you can come across is a giant red beetle that usually tries to ambush you. This enemy is fine, it deals a good bunch of damage, but like it dies in one hit. It can also deteriorate your equipment, which is annoying, but it never was a problem for me. The third enemy is a really interesting one. So basically, this creature is a sort of lizard that is literally wearing as a shell, or as its home, a bunch of poison-spitting statues glued together. The design is really interesting, and I prefer encountering an enemy like that rather than having poison-spitting statues all over the place in Shulva. Once all nearby threats are gone, simply walk past it, or you can use a bow to aim at its face to kill it, because if you try to attack it with a traditional weapon, a melee weapon, it's not going to do anything since you're going to hit the statue above before hitting his face. In a similar way to poison butterflies in Hunterscopes, this enemy encourages you to use a bow, or I guess a crossbow. I really like this first section. There are quite a few ways you can go, the enemies feel good to fight, and they are challenging. They are not too hard to deal with, but you still need to be careful, or else you'll get overwhelmed and killed. To help you maneuver around, the devs added an interesting mechanic. You can attack small contraptions that will then move a bigger object in the environment, mostly pillars in this first section. It's an interesting mechanic. It even rewards players with an extra secret bonfire right before we get to the pyramid section. In general, DLCs are better than the base game, and we can already see it right here. As we progress to the bridge leading to the pyramid, Sin, the final boss of this DLC, comes and completely annihilates anything standing on that bridge. 2 enemies. Seeing a character we know we are going to fight at the end do this kind of action really helps build up some hype towards the encounter, which is something that was lacking a lot in the base game. Like, I think only the Pursuer and Freya, the Duke Freya, got that treatment, and it's sad, honestly. I think some build up like that really helps make a boss feel better to fight, because we expect the encounter. So we have hype for the encounter, and it makes it feel better, especially if it's good. Of course, if you build up something, if you hype players for a fight and the fight sucks, well, the build up is useless in that case. Now let's talk about the second part of this DLC and the most interesting one, inside the Shulva Sanctuary. As soon as you enter, you get to choose to go left or right. Each path contains a new enemy and a new mechanic. To the right, you get to meet big knights with cemeteries that are impervious to all types of physical damage. You can use magic to hurt them, but it deals low damage. And if you notice, right in front of them lies 2 armors from which emanates a dark aura. If you destroy the armors, it will render the knight prompt to get smashed by your gigantic club. Be careful though, they are very fast, they're always in at least pairs, they have a lot of combos and quite the health bar. Now, even though their attacks aren't as deadly as other enemies, you still need to be careful around them. Luckily, you can always use the environment to your advantage when fighting those enemies, which I think is pretty cool. I love the mechanic these enemies have, and I think it's great, honestly, you know? Like, you encounter a guy and you cannot do anything against him, and you have to go to a certain point to be able to hurt him. That has been done in other games as well. Here, the solution to be able to hurt them is literally right in front of them, so it might not be as impactful, but as we will be able to see later on, they reused it in a pretty good way. If you go to the other part, the left part, you meet one of the priestess of Shulva, turned into an abomination, casting dark spells to try and kill you. To escape this room, you will need to activate a pressing plate multiple times, while a bunch of enemies are trying their hardest to get you. If you manage to escape, be careful not to enter a dead end, because you'll get absolutely obliterated by the enemies. And that happened to me twice as I was exploring Shulva, and it sucks. When you're stuck in a dead end and you cannot do anything to hurt the enemies because you keep getting staggered and you cannot do anything to flee, it just feels bad. So that's the second flaw for this DLC. The first one being that the key to access it is hidden in whoever knows where. Beyond that point, you can explore a corridor with multiple paths. One leads to a room full of bugs, literally. One leads to a challenging room where you have to escape traps, big knights, and a priestess shooting magic at you. Run through the room, climb a ladder, kill the priestess, go through the room with all the magical armors, destroy them while 2 angry knights are pursuing you, and you can then kill them all. As I said earlier, they reused that mechanic, only this time you meet the enemies before finding the armor, which I think is great. I really like this room and the challenge it poses. If you explore and interact with the mechanics, you'll discover another secret bonfire in this room, which might be necessary considering what you're about to fight. Jester Thomas. Lesson number 1 in video games. If a guy looks goofy, he is about to rock your ass. This invader is probably the most dangerous one in the game. He's hard, he hits hard, he has a lot of health, he can heal himself with spells. Be careful, cause he can literally kill you in 2 hits with a super fast flaming attack. Be very careful, because if you die, of course, you have to do the entire section again, unless you unlock the secret bonfire, which is why it's very useful. And I think this is something great about this DLC, is that they added mechanics. So here it's interacting with contraptions and pressure plates to activate other devices, and they reward players that use those mechanics instead of ignoring them. It kinda mirrors what I said in my video about the undead crypts, but here it's the opposite. Instead of punishing players who use the mechanics, they reward them, which I think is good. It's exactly what you need to do in a video game. Anyway, once you're done with Jester Thomas, you get out of the pyramid and get the chance to fight the imperfects you saw at the beginning. Finally reaching a point you were able to saw earlier always feels good in video games. You can do that in Elden Ring, in Dark Souls 1, in Dark Souls 3. In Dark Souls 2, you don't often get the case to witness a full environment, so sometimes it's hard to know where you're going and it's hard to feel satisfied when you reach the destination. Like, you can see Earthen Peak before entering the Harvest Valley, you can see the bottom of the mines in Seldora before exploring it, but that's it. You don't really see Aldia's Keep or Drangleic Castle before reaching them. Same with Iron Keep, which is kind of a fortunate. All of that just makes Shulva feels much better than the base game. Now, the imperfects are very tanky and they deal good damage, but their attacks are easy to dodge. The real challenge here is fighting 6 of them in a row without dying, because if you die, well, they all respawn, which is kind of annoying actually. Luckily, there's a bonfire right next to them. After that, you can unlock the path to the final area, but before talking about it, let's explore this nice and calm area called the Cave of the Dead. I'm sure it's a wonderful place to live in. Right? Right? Every Dark Souls 2 DLC has a dreadful area. Here in Shulva, it's the Cave of the Dead. This cave starts with a few enemies and some curse-spitting statues. You know, I had enough of the poison-spitting statues, so they heard me and they replaced them with curse-spitting statues. Of course, it's much better to be cursed rather than to be poisoned, of course. So yeah, you arrive in that cave, you fight a few enemies before dropping in the middle of Ohio. Curse-spitting statues, shell lizards with curse-spitting statues on their back, soldiers with maces and bows who can poison you just by being near them. Amazing place. This place is supposed to be played in co-op, but I went in on my own every time. I did this for the other 2 DLC as well. I died once in the Cave of the Dead, which was pretty disappointing. Like, this is supposed to be a super hard and frustrating area, and I only died once? What? And I only died because I didn't know what I was putting myself into. But on my second attempt, I succeeded. I made sure to take my time, not run everywhere like a headless chicken, and I killed every enemy. This is probably the easiest of the DLC optional areas, so I don't have that much bad things to say about it, though I understand why people would be angry, because, well, I played the other 2 DLCs, and I played through an area called the Frigid Outskirts, and this area is... how do I say that without insulting everybody in the room? It's gonna kick your balls every time you die. And that's the problem with those areas, is that going through them once is fine, it's okay. But if you die to the boss at the end, you have to go through them again. Which is the point of Souls games, okay? But those areas are so dreadful when you try to run through them that it just becomes super frustrating. And that's basically the problem with Dark Souls 2 in general, is that a lot of areas are fine, but when you try to run through them to go to the boss, they become super tedious. This is the case with Dragon Shrine. This is the case here with those DLC areas. It's the case in Iron Keep before you fight the Smelter Demon. Getting followed by all the enemies in a single area till the end of the earth just because you want to run through it to reach and fight the boss. It sucks. And I get it, some people will tell me, yeah, but I mean, it makes sense, you're not supposed to run past every enemy, of course they're going to follow you. Okay, I get it, but if you explore the area once, what's the point of doing it again? Now you might tell me, well, you could just put them on fire before every boss fight. And, well, in Elden Ring they added Marika stakes, which I think are great additions. But here it's not the case, so I have the right to complain about it, okay? So yeah, the Cave of the Dead, it's cool, you have to take your time to survive it. Now let's talk about the boss you can fight at the end, Gang Squad. This fight is often described by people as one of the worst in the game. It's true this fight is different from typical boss fights, however I have to disagree as I think this boss is really good. In fact, I consider all the boss fights in the Dark Souls 2 DLCs to be better than almost all the bosses in the base game, with a few exceptions like Velstadt, Freya, the Pursuer or the Rune Sentinels. There are several reasons that make me like Gang Squad as a boss. First is the layout of the arena. I think it's great. When fighting here, running around to try and pick them one by one is the key to the fight. You can try to take them on right away, but a 3v1 is not going to go well, especially with the guy that has the big club and that is dressed like Havel in Dark Souls 1 and 3. You should start with the one shooting arrows at you, of course. To do this, you can fall down in the water below, where Shell Lizard await you, to make things harder, of course. Quickly go back up to kill the archer before the 2 others get to you. From that point, managing to split them both is really hard, and you can try to do this thanks to the layout of the arena. However, I found that fighting them head-on was better, because in terms of weapon speed they aren't the same at all, so I find it's easy to lose the one with the club and the other one with the daggers will pursue you faster, so you can just pick him up when he's alone and kill him easily. You can just try the hit and run strategy, it works perfectly here. The strategy for this fight is interesting and I really like the tension that comes with it. Things become easier every time you kill one of them, but be careful with the last one, cause a single mistake means back to the start of the Cave of the Dead. I think most of the people who hate that fight tried fighting them head on and failed, cause obviously a 3v1 is not gonna go well. Of course, if you compare it with a traditional boss fight in Souls games, it has nothing to do with the back and forth fight like Fume Knight or Maliketh in Elden Ring. I still think it's good, and the people that like fighting Mikhail's allies in the Shadow of the Archer DLC would probably enjoy this fight too. Overall, the Cave of the Dead and Gang Squad reputations are undeserved, I think. They're not as bad. Honestly, I quite enjoyed it. The challenge they offer is certain, and you will be frustrated only if you refuse to adapt to the place. You can still use a lot of builds inside of that place, so for me it's not a problem at all, and I'm not going to say Cave of the Dead is bad or needs a fix, I think it's good as it is. Now, let's talk about the last area and the 2 last bosses of the DLC, Elana and Sin. After unlocking the path beyond the Imperfects, you reach the top of the pyramid before going all the way down in Dragon Sanctum. On your way down, you'll come across Drake Knights, which are surprisingly tough knight enemies, especially considering how small they are. The main danger to reach the bottom floor is full damage, however. This part is the run back to Elena, so it may seem a bit long at first, but you can get used to it pretty fast and it's not all that bad. You might die from full damage a few times though, so yeah, there's that. You can also completely run past the Drake Knights, you don't have to fight them every time. And there's also a third secret bonfire right here, and this time I have to complain about it. Because for the first 2 secret bonfires, all you had to do was to interact with the environment. But here, how are you supposed to find it without Google? Thanks to messages in Dark Souls, you can get some hints from other worlds about it, but man, the 2 previous secret bonfires were great, and this one is just here to mess with us, like, seriously. The amount of time you're going to spend if you don't find it, well, it's not that bad, especially since Elena isn't that hard of a boss, but it's still annoying. Especially if you die from full damage, as I said. Anyway, let's talk about the boss now. Elena is one of the 4 daughters of Manus, a part of his soul symbolizing wrath. This is made pretty clear by the fact she literally insults you every time you enter a fog gate. Outside of that, her design is interesting. Her face is literally consumed by wrath. You know, it's like an old lady that was sad or angry all her life. You literally see it on her face. She wields a huge staff, or it's some sort of great axe, it's kinda weird. And she wears a dress that seems to be a part of her body, kinda like the Shulva priestess. Gameplay wise, she's a really solid boss. She can cast various dark magic spells, forcing you to pay attention to your positioning. She doesn't have a phase 2, but she doesn't need one honestly, as she already puts a constant pressure on you, which is just good enough for a boss fight, in my book. Sometimes she will summon help in the form of skeletons, pigs, or Velstadt for some weird reason, like why the hell is she able to summon Velstadt? That doesn't make any sense. This can turn the fight into a hit and run strategy, again, without making it too hard or frustrating. Overall, I like her fight a lot. I just wish they didn't put her right before Sin. Build-up is good for both of them. You see Sin at the start of the area, you see him burning with poison the guards on the bridge, and you can hear Elena sing while exploring Dragon Sanctum. But fighting them back to back kinda reduces the impact, in my book. Anyway, let's talk about Sin now. The Slumbering Dragon is the one and only good dragon fight in Dark Souls 2, which is a damn shame, honestly. At least I'm glad there is one good dragon fight in the game, because there could have been none, you know? But there is one. Sin is also not your typical dragon fight, as he literally breathes poisoned instead of regular fire. This makes him much cooler and explains why Shulva is the way it is, with everybody being poisoned, you know? Gameplay wise, he can fly around, he can charge, he can spit poison fire, spit poison balls, can use its tail, its claws. It's pretty good, he can use every part of his body, which makes a big difference between him and the Ancient Dragon or the Guardian Dragon. Both of those fights, their movesets are very lacking, and this one here, he uses everything he has in his arsenal. That's great. His moves are also fair, although not always easy to dodge. Every move he does has a specific way of being dodged, so you have to be careful about that. It's one of the more difficult fights in the game, although it's Dark Souls 2, so it's not that hard. I still really appreciate the difficulty, because fighting easy bosses all day long becomes boring very quickly. Now, to recap Shulva, I think this area is great, and I wish the rest of the game was like that, but hey, it's a DLC, and DLCs are always better than the main game, at least for Souls games. Almost everything is good here, with a few exceptions. There is good, the enemies are good, the mechanics are pretty cool, they make them interesting. They made it so that if players interact with the mechanics, they get rewarded in the form of secret bonfires, which I think is great. The bosses are cool. The optional area, which is supposed to be dreadful, is actually pretty cool, in my book at least. Honestly, I liked almost everything about this place, except 4 things. First, finding the key to access the DLC is just dumb. How are you supposed to find it without Google? Secondly, enemies blocking you in deadheads in the pyramid is annoying, because if they do, you're just dead because they keep staggering you, so you cannot hit them, you cannot protect yourself, you cannot heal, and you cannot escape or run, so it's just a guaranteed death. Elena and Sin are great boss fights, but they are back-to-back, which I think kinda reduces their impact. The last secret bonfire right before Elena sucks, because it's hidden in the middle of fucking nowhere, and the only way to find it is either Google or messages from other people. So to conclude, I'm gonna give this place a 9.5 out of 10, because it's almost perfect but not quite there, and of course if you compare it to other areas in other games. There are much better stuff out there. It's still good for what it is. It's still very good for Dark Souls 2. So I'm giving it that note. I'm not giving it the best score because I think there is another area that is even better than this, but we'll talk about that in the next video. Anyway, I would definitely recommend buying this DLC and playing through Shulva because I think it's really a great area to explore and fight through. Now, thank you for watching, I'll leave you there and I'll see you around. Bye!